Hey guys, another episode here from Tour Camp, and I'm really excited to share more stories with you today. Did want to mention that in addition to the sound quality that I mentioned last time, there also will be, I saw some feedback about the last episode that it was not the normal format, and you shouldn't expect that. So if you're not looking to, that's kind of why I kept it as a 397 point whatever. Just skip all the 397 episodes. These are going to be a little bit different, a little bit more story focused, a little bit more interesting about the people that we meet here. So here we go with another one to Tour Camp. Hope you enjoy it. This is the Amp Hour Podcast, released June 21st, 2018. Episode 397.2. An interview with Gareth from Greenpeace. Welcome to the Amp Hour. I'm Chris Gamble of Contextual Electronics.
And I'm Gareth of Doing Random Things with Greenpeace for quite a few years.
Yes, now. Greenpeace. So, welcome, Gareth. We are currently at TourCon. This is our second day.
Tour Camp?
Tour
Camp.
Tour Camp, yes. TourCon
yeah.
is in October or something.
Yeah.
So how did you end up deciding to come down here?
Almost everyone who I sort of admire and follow on the internet and have used their work or their code or followed, their projects, has decided to come camping in the Pacific Northwest, and I live just across the border in Vancouver.
Yep.
And I've been wanting to come here since I heard about it back in 2016. Yeah. And so it's been a 2-year build-up.
Waiting
finally
time,
here.
Yeah. And how's it delivering so far?
Well, I'm meeting famous podcasters, meeting famous software-defined radio folks, and it's actually quite incredible. There's a lot of folks who've come from all over the world.
Right, and the sun finally came out too, so that helps too.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's an amazing place to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at Jeff Kaiser right now as well. He's not going to join us for this one. We might get him later. Guy.
He looks like a man with plenty to say.
Yeah, he does. Mostly, yes, sir.
And did you see Bunny Huang
I did,
the keynote? That was great.
That was a great keynote, yeah. It was very good about kind of combining. I like that Venn diagram.
Totally.
I'm a sucker for Venn diagram.
Yeah, I liked his sort of very no-nonsense approach of you can't have nice things unless you put in the infrastructure and the effort to have it. And I kind of feel like, the same way about most things. I have to go and learn all this stuff and build all this infrastructure so that we can have this, maker community and new products and new, it was really good.
Right, and he was talking about the hardware skills that you learn are kind of stick with you versus the frameworks of software that keep changing over time. Yeah. That sounded like more of a grumpy old man thing, but I very much associate with that. So
there was definitely the element of what we've lost, and I thought it was quite poignant when he was saying about the software sort of the dot-com boom. Yeah. Taking everyone away from all being hardware engineers to being software is what we do now. Right. We outsource everything to predominantly China.
Our cost basis has to get higher, or get lower rather. So we need more margin. Yeah. Software is the way.
And now everyone wants to build new hardware devices. They need all these, as we know, the Internet of Things is the future. And
I've heard that,
and unfortunately it's not quite delivering.
Yeah, right. No, we're not there yet. Well, we'll be seeing some hacking with that, I'm sure, with the SDR stuff and there's some LoRa stuff here, I think you said, right? So.
The Great Scott Gadgets crew are feeding everyone creme brulee.
That's right, that's right. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. And you can take the jar and turn it into a twinkling
that's what firefly. That's what the badge is. So, right. So let's get back to you, though. Victoria, not Victoria, were you? In
Vancouver.
Vancouver, okay.
BC. But I'm from Tassie.
From Tassie, Australia.
A little island off the island.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So how'd you make your way up there to Vancouver?
I married a Canadian, and went to move there about 3 years ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's a beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, just recently. Yeah, I've heard that Seattle's a step down from Mr. Kaiser over there, and that was surprising to me. So
the poor man's Vancouver. Is that what they call it?
That's apparently. I'm pretty wild now, so I think I got another step up. I'll have to come visit you.
Yeah, definitely.
So you mentioned Greenpeace. So what have you been doing with Greenpeace?
A bunch of stuff. I started working in 2012 2012 in Amsterdam. I was based there for 3 years doing sort of managing IT and infrastructure stuff there. But that sort of spiraled out with technical competency. You can sort of like throw that at lots of different areas. And I ended up being a kind of a tech generalist, pottering around all over the world, doing different kind of projects and different campaigns. And at the moment, like I do everything from software-defined radio, tracking of illegal fishing tuna buoys and animals in certain parks and a bunch of stuff from satellite networks that some of the folks that I'm really excited to meet here actually wrote a lot of the code and did a lot of the work, the foundational work there for sort of decoding, ancient satellite technologies that are still utilized today every single day.
I have a book on my Kindle about that, I think. Yeah. It's about the, I can't remember the name of it. Well, keep talking and I'll try and look it up if I can.
Yeah, I mean, and I do everything to like data science and, sort of social media analysis stuff because, if you can sling some code, you can download all of the Facebook posts and every comment and every like.
And start to analyze it.
Yeah.
What's going on.
Are there trolls? Are there people who just,
yes,
are there multiple
trolls.
accounts?
I can answer that one,
Yeah. Short answer, yes.
Yes, right.
Yeah, things like having a look at do the same accounts post in multiple languages across multiple Greenpeace pages, for example. Are there just that many multilingual trolls, or is perhaps there concerted effort to take away credibility of the the largest environmental protection activist organization in the world?
Yeah. And so I mean, how big is the organization, and like how much is tech focused?
Okay, so it's a federated model, Chris, which means that it's kind of like herding cats. If you ever want to get everyone to do something in the same way.
Well, it's a lot of countries, I'm sure.
Yep, lots of countries, lots of regions, and each one has their own executive director and their own board, so they're independent.
The thing about humans is
they work well together.
No, that's not what I was going to say, actually.
No, that's definitely not it. No, so you've got a massive sort of like range of different people and campaigns and things they're working on. Everything from the Arctic to the Antarctic to basically ending sort of the age of oil, because I mean, as we know, we can source electricity, from renewable sources in such quantities now that we're
definitely in the crossover region, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, like, speaking from my own personal perspective, I think that if we could put the sort of money behind, renewables and getting them everywhere, every house, every car, every whatever, like, we just put it out there. Well, then we've got extra electricity. What can you do with that? Well, you could do manufacturing.
Bitcoin,
you could mine Bitcoin.
Let's get the important things out of the way first, okay?
All right, that's how the future's going to be shaped, by mining Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, if you want to do everything from, smelting aluminium, like that's incredibly expensive. Like you look at a lot of the, the energy infrastructure anywhere in the world, a lot of it is geared up around,
you're near a nuclear source, you're near a hydro source, you're near whatever, right?
Yeah, and you've got to have that because they have massive consumption. But all of those industries are now sourcing renewables. And one of the I don't want to turn this into a pitch for like Greenpeace, necessarily, but I think like from a technology push, you look at the companies now that while they might be saying, oh no, we're not divesting oil, we're definitely not, because they don't want their stock price to tank. They're actually investing huge amounts of money into building lots of solar. Energy companies and investors.
Okay. So,
so like in Australia, for example, like a lot of the old coal-fired power stations, the government want to stay on, and the owners are saying, no, we're shutting them down because we're going to build these solar power stations, for much cheaper that have a higher rate of return. And at some level, it just becomes about the money, right?
That is the thing I always talk about. Is like that is the crossover point is so important for like when it becomes an economic thing. Versus just, I think there is always the not feel good, but like the, doing good kind of model, and like trying to get people to do that. You need to jumpstart with that. But when it crosses over economically, it's so much faster and better. And
totally. I mean, in the 90s, we'd go and do actions at a forest camp or a coal mine or something. People would be like, oh yeah, but you're driving cars. And it's like, yeah, because we all live in a society and a system that's together. That's what's available now. But as soon as you were like, oh, well, you can get the hybrid car that only runs on electricity.
And it'll be cheaper.
I can power it off my, I can grow my own food because, I can actually have hydroponics now, a wall of hydroponics. And now, I grow cabbages and my mate, next door grows, something else, and we swap it and we share it. And I can just see the technology is always going to be used for good or evil, but I can actually see having an abundance of electricity makes a lot more things more possible. The generic manufacturing, the 3D printing kind of groove.
Sure.
Once that starts to get to the ability to print things and to take, I don't know, I always think of carbon-based stuff. If you could take carbon out of the air, for example, and just physically put it into a unit of something that could then be carved into, items you need to repair and replace and whatever, which is probably a few years off yet, but I don't know, that's what science fiction sort of...
Yeah, exactly. That's the great promise. Yeah,
so that's my sort of inspiration to keep working with Greenpeace to try and push forward those new kind of take on an old story, which is that we don't want to live in a place where you can't breathe the air and drink the water, right? But how do we get there? And so that's always been...
So how do we get there? What's some of the tech behind the stuff that you're doing? So you're doing...
So my fun stuff, I think probably the most fun stuff was the Iridium satellite network that Schneider, who's here today, he insected that, and there's a bunch of talks that they've done at the Chaos Computer Club camp over the years. And I went to Mike Osman's software-defined radio course in Hamburg at forgetting what the name of the conference is there, but it's
not Electronica, right?
No. It's a security one out of Hamburg. Anyway, I went to that and backed the Hack RF, because it was 10 years ago it was $40,000 for a software-defined radio, and now suddenly it was $300 and you plug it into your laptop. So taking
one in my bag,
right. Well, we should sit down and definitely play with that at some point later. Taking the software from open source software from folks like Schneider and this relatively cheap hardware has sort of enabled me to put together. For folks who don't know, Iridium is the only satellite network that literally covers the planet. So it's used for all sorts of things, from making telephone calls to, putting devices into, tracking, buoys. So for tuna fishing, it's this weird, it's surreal, but they basically, anything floating in the ocean, fish will congregate underneath it. So they have a big floaty thing. They stick in an Iridium buoy in the middle so they can track it. They dump it off, a whole bunch of them off the back of a ship, and then they come back to them later on. Some of them have sonars built into them so that they can actually see if there's a bunch of biomass underneath, and then they scoop the lot up. So it's kind of like, how do you get the last fish that are in the ocean?
Got it. Right. That sounds bad.
Because if we're talking, if we really want to talk about what's the motivators, it's because X amount of the fish are no longer in the ocean, 80%, something like that. It's a ridiculous number.
Overfishing and everything.
So how do you get the last of them? And that's unfortunately one of the ways. So building some units that can go on the Greenpeace vessels. There's 3 vessels, but this one was doing some work off the east coast of Africa. And had a couple of computers and some hack RFs and amps and just actually tracking.
So the Iridium buoys were basically pinging back data, right?
Yes.
And you're basically trying to then detect what's out there and what's being, because this is not, is there legislation against the actual use of that or no?
No, well, it depends on where you are in the world. So so broadcasting to anything is usually bad, but you don't need to broadcast. So the Iridium satellites themselves, they fly over quite fast because they're low Earth, and they do a handoff. So they have a 25 gigahertz inter-satellite communication. So as the satellites go past, if we were sitting here with an Iridium device, we would be in contact with one satellite, it would go past, and the next one would come on. But they have an overlap, and they do coverage. So you get something like 500 square kilometers. I would say 500. I haven't been playing with it for a while, but it's about 500 square kilometers. And of course, your device is tuned only to respond to your ID, so you can't hear everyone else's. For example, if you were having
a telephone
cell phone
network, though, in kind of in space, right?
Absolutely.
That's exactly what sat phones are, right?
Totally, they are. And when you have a generic radio device that can actually just pull in that frequency, so whatever it is, 1080 or something, and then you pull in a bunch of the 20 megahertz or something for the hack RF.
Yeah.
You pull in the 20 megahertz across that, 10, I think it's 10.5 megahertz or something of frequency is all Iridium traffic.
Oh, okay.
And so then
you're just basically sniffing packets and then trying to figure what's out there.
Yep. So you actually just sniff all of the packets, and then you can just record them as separate files, or to your computer, whether it's and then turn it into an audio file, or you just save the pure data, and then you look at the data, and in many cases it's not encrypted, because of course you've got that, you've got those header packets, etc. But you have a payload, and the payloads are generally not, because there's wonderful documentation, and again, folks can go and see the Iridium talks, but it's that great kind of 80s documentation, which is because this system is unbreakable. Nobody could ever. The technology is does not exist. Nobody could ever actually get these radio packets.
Secured it anyways, right?
Yeah, and now you've got this little USB dongle you stick into your computer that pulls magic out of the air. It's, so utilizing that basically.
Okay, cool. And so is that the main thing that you're doing for Greenpeace, or you said there's other stuff you're pulling in as well?
No, so I'm doing all these projects. So I'm kind of like I'm the action tech project guy at the moment, which means I wear many hats. So basically, if you can sort of sling code, everyone can find it useful.
They know your name, and they're like, oh, yeah.
And as a trusted person as well. So I've done lots of security stuff as well, because with my role, I get to travel a lot, so everyone sort of knows me, and there are many, many different people, and so obviously it's a sort of a trust network. So I've been doing all sorts of things, and the last stuff I've been doing has been social media monitoring, because pulling down all of the posts and all of the likes and comments and reactions to Greenpeace Facebook pages, because the whole Cambridge Analytica thing where Facebook's been selling and releasing, all of that. Having a look and trying to find out whether the same account is posting, if people are trolling to multiple pages in multiple languages. Yeah, that sort of stuff.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cool. Those are both great. That's some great use of technology around, organizational goals, I guess. So
yeah.
That's awesome. Any other hardware things with them, or is it mostly the Iridium?
No, mostly the Iridium.
Okay, I actually did look up the book as we were talking to, and it was Eccentric Orbits is the book that about the Iridium. It's like next on my reading list. So
excellent. Eccentric Orbits.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
I'm looking forward to that.
Have to listen to that.
Yeah, definitely. So tell me about you're wearing a T-shirt as well, and it says Pretty 8 Machine.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to think hard, but it's Pretty 8 Machine by 9 Inch Nails. The album?
I don't know.
Do you know there's a chap, Trent Reznor, who does 9 Inch Nails?
I've heard of 9 Inch Nails.
So Pretty 8 Machine is is the earliest album, and this is the chiptune version of it, done really? by and I'm trying to remember his name.
So there's also a picture of a Moss 6502.
Yep, and it is a delightfully cute and wonderful album. So
that's great.
I should definitely listen to it. I wish I could think of the guy's name who did it, because he's doing some more albums lately. So he's got a bunch of stuff.
Okay, that's awesome. So what else are you hoping to see here at TourCamp?
So the creme brulee, I think, is pretty important. Just seen a talk on creme brulee, but for me it's definitely about the sitting down with everyone and being able to have the soldering stations. We've got badges to solder up. We've got software-defined radio now. So great. Scott Gadgets has grown. Have you seen?
I've heard that.
Yeah, we've got a few people. So I want to go and hang out with those guys.
Right. Yeah.
And there's and hanging out with Schneider and other folks, and actually just meeting people. So literally just hanging out with the people that have been like really quite instrumental in teaching me things and being a really good community, but just on the internet.
That's right. Yeah.
And now they're in
real life. Yeah.
Awesome. Now we're in real life.
Awesome. Well, thanks for talking to me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
All right.
Really appreciate it.
We'll have more talks here from TourCamp, and thanks for listening.